Please welcome first-time DynamicsCon speaker and Microsoft MVP, Fernando Tudela. Today, he will be showcasing his session, Electronic Reporting in D365FO. What, how, and why? Please stick around after Fernando's session for a live Q&A.
Okay, now I think we're good. Yeah, so I was saying I'm Fernando Tudela, Technical Architect in Illumina Technology Solutions, 2 times Microsoft MVP for the AI ERP, basically finance and operations. I am from Spain, but I am right now in Los Angeles because of work. So just doing the session from the hotel room. And let's go straight to the point. Let's go to talk about electronic reporting and how I started with electronic reporting. Once upon a time, you are just technical consultant or any kind of functional consultant, and then somebody is having issues with electronic reporting, and they ask you, hey, we have an error here. Could you take a look? You have no idea about, or I had no idea about electronic reporting when that happened the first time. Then you go there, you see these errors, you see the UI that it's pretty, let's say, challenging. And that's how many of us started to understand or to learn about electronic reporting. Back in the days, there was even less documentation. So basically, after trial and error, you start to then understand how it works. But it took me a lot of time to get into to get like confidence into on working in with electronic reporting, right? So the aim of this session is to help you spare some of that pain I suffered and fast track the your abilities with electronic reporting. So we are gonna motivate why, but this is also about how you can understand, how you can get better at it, what it is, how you can get the most of it, and yeah. So first of all, what's electronic reporting? Like, if you have never heard about it, or if you have heard about it but you don't have a clear picture of what it is, electronic reporting is basically a framework within finance and operations that allows you to export, that's create, generate, or import files. So you can do it in different formats: Excel, JSON, PDF, text, Word, or XML. So the key thing here is that it is a framework, it's a functionality, and it doesn't require development. Like, to generate a file, you can generate a file without having to develop anything. That's the key point, and that's one of the reasons why this is very useful. And another reason is that a lot. Well, I think we're gonna go to that later, but that's electronic reporting. So you might be thinking, I thought electronic reporting was about reports, was like the substitution of SSRS. I thought electronic reporting is about electronic invoices. I thought it's all of that, but it's actually only a framework that generates and import files. But Microsoft uses it for everything, and that's why it's so important to learn about it, because you will have to use it probably. So you generate files, and it's very famous with around business documents, but it's also usable for integrations. Like, for example, bank integrations are using it, and there's a lot of processes where you need a specific format, a text file with some characters being this field, 2 characters being this field, like the bank statements are pretty much like that, or you need an XML with some specific formatting. For that, it's very useful, electronic reporting for integration. So if you don't care about the formats, I wouldn't recommend you to use electronic reporting because you have DMF, OData, you have a lot of ways to integrate using just custom services. But if you need a specific format to import, or you have to import a specific format, or somebody, a third party, or even the government, or somebody's requesting you to have to generate a file in a specific format, then that's the sweet spot of electronic reporting, right? So that's the end. No, just kidding. I mean, that's a very bad explanation of what's electronic reporting. Of course, electronic reporting generates files and import files, but it's a lot more than that, right? Let's go a little bit into the detail of what current out-of-the-box processes use electronic reporting. Like all of these are out-of-the-box electronic reportings. There's many of them. I've used them. I've used the ones here plus business documents in my life as a consultant. So this is the main reason why electronic reporting is important for you as a consultant to learn, because there's a lot of standardized processes like electronic invoices, VAT declaration, taxes, all that stuff. These are very common formats that Microsoft have already provided the electronic reporting models, model mappings, and formats, so you can reuse it. And you can create your own based on that. You can duplicate the standard one and make your changes there. So we are gonna go into the details of what's this model mapping and format and everything. This is just a session to pique your interest, to start using electronic reporting, and also to give you the clues for the keys for the first steps. I have a lot of content out there about electronic reporting, so there's many links in the PPT for this. So I don't know if this is going to be uploaded somewhere. If not, I will make sure to upload it to my blog or to my LinkedIn. So why using ER? We were saying it's low code, so no need for developers for simple tweaks. This is when you develop, you have to deploy to UAT, you have to test it there. There might be some tweaks, there might be some things that you need to iterate in, so it can delay the changes. Even when it's a simple change, it can have like at least 2-3 days or even more until you get them in production. So this is low code, and the deployment is done with 0 downtime. So that's a pro. That's a very good reason to use electronic reporting. Also, if it's a change in the format, sometimes the functional guy knows, or even the user knows exactly what is the change in the format he or she they need to do, right? So not having to develop removes part of that chain of information where some in each step some information can be lost, right? Also, reuse already provided commonly used formats like the ones we saw before. Also, business documents. We have a lot of business documents already done by Microsoft that you can reuse and add your stuff there. Also, it's a lot easier to get good format and good looking reports in Excel or Word rather than what we are used to for SSRS. When you have if you're a developer, you you will probably know what I mean. When you have your report and you move something and then it looks kind of okay in the SSRS pre-visualization in your dev machine, but then you print it in the UI and it's completely like everything's messed, and it's just, yeah. Also, you have print destinations. So the print destinations are pretty much the same. In fact, they are reusing the functionality from the print management of normal or typical SSRS reports, but you have print destinations not only for the print management. When you are in ER, even if you create an ER from scratch and it's not part of the print management functionality, you can have print destinations for them. So you can convert it to PDF, you can create many files and send it to SharePoint, stuff like that. All of that functionality out of the box. This is all a little bit an explanation of why, right? Why to use electronic reporting. Now let's talk about what is electronic reporting in detail. Let's get a little bit technical here. Run if you are like allergic to the technical stuff, to the code. Run. It's not code, but it's still development. So what we have is in electronic reporting is basically we have three main objects that are the data model, the model mapping, and the format. Okay, so sometimes the model mapping is inside the data model, but sometimes it's outside of the model. We are gonna see it with examples. Okay, so the data model is like an empty structure where you put the information you need or the information you want to import, depending on if you are importing or exporting. The data model then, that it's an empty structure, it's just like the body or just the skeleton. And then in the data model mapping, if you are exporting, in the data model mapping, you will get the data from the actual tables and fill that data model with that information. That's the second step for exporting. Once you have your data model filled with the data model mapping, you go to the format and format that information into the specific file that you need. When we are importing, we receive the file, we format it. That means we read the file. We are expecting a format, like we are expecting, for example, an XML with some elements. So you receive that XML and your format will parse that XML and get that information mapped to the model. The model that is that empty structure that with all the information we are treating, okay? Then your model will be filled from the format and it will travel through the data model mapping to the actual tables, okay? So that's how it works, like very high overview. Then let's see, like this is exactly what I was telling, but this is cartoony, right? What I am saying right now, it looks easy, it looks very beautiful. But if you have worked with electronic reporting, and I admit, like if you have worked with electronic reporting, you might have noticed, and I admit that it's not the prettier application in the world, the prettier UI. So, but it doesn't mean that it's not functional, like, or it's not useful. It's so useful. The thing is, many people don't overpass that barrier or that very abrupt learning curve at the beginning, and then don't get to actually learn electronic reporting. That it's very useful. And also in the market, I've seen many offers out there that they are actually specifically asking you to have electronic reporting knowledge. So this is like the cartoony version of it. We have this Simba, and it's pretty cool, right? The old-fashioned cartoony Simba. But this is the reality. This is this is what we expect in the real life. So let's see this example in the real life. This example is extracted from my blog. I have a blog post and a YouTube video where I do from scratch exactly this. That is, we have this incoming file that it's just a TXT file where we have header and line, right? So we, for example, in this case, we are adding 3 lines to the header 1. It's line 1, line 2, and line 4. They're going to header 1. And then we are having line 3 and line 5 in the notepad numeration, I mean, that goes to line 2. So just a text file. What we did in this example is, here you are the format. This first step is the format. The format will parse that information. So you create the file in some sequences. Every sequence will I don't want to go into the details of every format, because every format has its own peculiarities. But basically, you parse the information. You tell I want you to divide this text in lines. I want you to divide this text have 7 characters. You could also, in this case, we are dividing by character positions, but because it was inspired by a real case of importing bank statements, but it could be done perfectly with comma or with any separator. You can put separators there to divide the file text. And then once you have parsed that information, and you have that information that you get from the format, and you here from the format, I don't know if you see my, do you see my, I don't know if you see my cursor, but it doesn't matter. In the second step, that gets parts from the format, it goes to the model, that is the empty structure. And then in the third step, the model mapping designer will get that information that we parse from the file, got into the model. We will insert it into the actual tables. That's the example of real life, how it looks in the real life, importing something. Now for the export flow, we have this cartoony Frodo, but in the real life, it looks like this. This is me dressed as Frodo. Sorry about that. I don't know why I do this in my presentations. Just I love jokes, so you have to forgive me. In this case, we are going the other way around, right? Like we are starting with the tables. We have the table. Then we will map that table to the model through the model mapping. That means we create a model. We create a model with header lines and all that stuff. We are gonna see an example, so you can put a face on it better. And then we map the model to the format, and that format in this case is an XML. So we can easily generate an XML like this one, and that's the example we are gonna kind of do. A little bit different example, but because the data source is different, but the whole procedure is more or less the same. This is bad formatted. Let me check. This shouldn't be like this. In my copy is not like that, but it doesn't matter. So we have different data source types. The data source types, when we export information, is our tools, the tools we have to consume that information. So we have table records and objects. We have class and table. We have calculated field and so on. So table records. The table records are when you want to export actual data from tables, you use table records, and that is like adding the data source of that table, and then you filter it. You can also filter it. We're going to see an example of that. So table records access the actual data of the tables. Then you have the table. That table object is not the data of the table, but the static methods of that table. So it will give you access to the logic of that table. You could also get information, or you could also get data from a method that receives some information from an input parameter that call that method, and that method returns, let's say, a record, and then you format that information in the ER. So it's very flexible. The options you have are almost like unlimited. Then when we talk about classes, you have like kind of the same. The table record was for the data of the table. Object is an instance of a class. If you're not that technical, that might be a little hard to understand. But basically, for example, the old SSRS reports, they work with, you have some information in F&O. That information is processed through a data provider, and that data provider inserts all that information into temporary tables. But the information is within that data provider. So in ER, the business documents are using the same data source than the old SSRS in order to have backward compatibility, and because all the logic was already there, so Microsoft reused it. For that, they use the object because they need that data provider that has already processed all that information from the tables, and you have all that information in your data provider. That's an instance with a specific information in it that has been filled by code. So this object is normally filled by code. You don't use it if you are doing an ER from scratch only functional, but it's very useful. I have some videos that I'm showing how you can execute an electronic reporting from code, and it's very useful, this object. In fact, I use it in my solution. I shared a solution that it's, I think, in GitHub, in order to, like, it's a small framework to create, for example, a button and execute an ER from whenever you want, just sending a data contract. That data contract is processed as an object. Then we have the class. The class is just it's the static methods of the class. So it gives you access to the logic of the class. That is very useful. For example, if you have a lot of processing logic that you want to always use in ER, you can create an ER utils, for example, with some static methods that you will use across all your ERs. Then you have the calculated field, the group by, join. Calculated field is just a variable. So if you want to process something and use it in many places, like for example, you have the cast table and you want to get to find the customer group ID somewhere, but you want to reuse that customer group ID in many places, you save that into a calculated field. It's like a variable. Group by, the same as if you are doing an SQL select and you want to group by fields. Join, same. Then you have inputs object using a data contract. That's the example I said before. You can have a data contract and through code send that data contract to an ER, and then you just do the ER from all functionally. But that first step of running the ER and sending the parameters to the ER, you can do it through code using this object, using using the object as a data contract, or you can have user input parameters, or you could even have when you add the table record, you can ask for the query and more. You can use enums. I have a blog post about enums too, labels and functions in the formula. You have in the right side, you have all the functions you have there, and there's a small explanation in every function about what it does. The use of methods, you can use methods. It's a little bit different than when you use them in code. As I was saying before, you can use methods from classes. You can use methods from, what is that? It got valley. Good. So But you can use methods from classes, from objects, from tables, and from table records. From objects and table records, you will use instance methods, and from it's there. And from class and table, you will use non-instance method. And the way to use them is using the method like you see in the screen with the single quotation, and then the parentheses later with the parameters. It's pretty unusual, but once you know how to use it, it's pretty simple. So now, warning, low code is still development. This is low code, but it's still development, right? So we have to change, like if you come from a functional standpoint, or you are even a user, you have to change your mind. This is not just, even with the configuration, you shouldn't just configure things in production, right? But in this case, this is development, so you should have kind of a repository and a way to deploy it to production, having taken into account that you must track the changes you have been doing, right? If you start doing changes in several different environments, you have different versions of the ERs in different environments, and then you have to promote to production one change, and then you get the version you had in one environment, but there's another person working in another different functionality, or another different work item, DevOps or task, and changing something. They changed it, they deploy it to production, then you deploy your version without that change, and you are killing whatever your colleague did. So make sure to have a good strategy and to follow the same rules. The team must go together as one when we are talking about developing and ALM in electronic reporting. So what we have now, it used to be RCS, like the repository and the tool to deploy to different environments and so on. Now it's Dataverse. Also, another thing, I don't have much time because I want to go to the demos, but another thing I want to talk about is the performance. This is still development, so you have to take care of the performance. Maybe when you are developing something, it works in your environment, if you are a developer, for example, because you have very little data or whatever. When it goes to production and you don't put the filters, that like a specific filter for one record, and you have to process many records, it can take very long. It can consume a lot of resources. So make sure you take performance into account. One way of taking performance into account is making sure you don't use a lot of methods over and over again. Make sure, for example, when you are filtering, use, I think that's enough. Oh, this didn't work. This didn't work. I don't know what's going on with the PPT. It shouldn't be like this. I don't know if I can share my screen actually. Yeah, okay, let's go fast. I hope you're seeing my screen. So when you are doing, like, this is very important. You have to use where. For example, you have to use filter instead of where, because where will get all the data from the table and it will filter it in runtime, in memory. But if you do filter, it won't get all the data and have it in memory and then filter it, but it will just do the filtering in SQL and only load the data after it's filtered. But you might get some error, like saying the list expression of filter function is not queryable if you have some calculated fields in it or some logic. And if you find this, don't go back to where and do it the way you know. Push your limits and stop it. Get some help. Maybe go to my blog post or somewhere where I explain this. You can use the filter if you tweak a little bit the calculated fields you've done, and you do the calculated fields after the filter. So the filter should be the first thing you do. Then there's other tools like execution tracing. Microsoft. And now the version control is it used to be RCS. Now it's dead. Now we are using Dataverse. So Dataverse will help us to get. We have all the functionality we used to have in RCS, but a dedicated environment to develop the changes. This is pretty advanced, but we used to develop the changes in RCS. Now we can't. So you have to agree in which environment you are going to develop. When you develop that, you upload that to Dataverse, and from Dataverse, you promote it across the different environments and deploy it across the different environments. That's the ALM I suggest. Yeah, the RCS and dedicated environment wasn't the best. It was very slow, so it's a good thing. But no matter what tool we'll be using, but please use one. That was said by me, actually. Sorry. Keep it clean. This is still development, so make sure to stop before you start doing stuff, and ask yourself if you could do it better. So what I am doing now is I am gonna go to one environment I have that it's no, where was it? Sorry, 1 second. I need to check where I have it. Sorry for this. I wanted to prepare this beforehand, but given the circumstances, I've been in LA with a go live, so I will just load it. It's over here. Present, share screen. So this is the environment I have, and let's go to electronic reporting and see a real example of it. We have 15 minutes for it. So I will go for the demo of, we're gonna create an XML file showing sales table and sales line in a specific format. We have to create one. First, we create the model, that is the empty structure. So let's say model XML demo. Then we go to the designer, and this is the model. So it is, as I was saying, an empty structure. Here, since we are exporting, we are gonna put whatever we want to show or whatever we want to use in our in our file. So model XML or just model. We are gonna show many sales tables. So we create a record list that it's sales table records. Okay. Then let's put the sales ID, and let's add also the customer ID, and we are gonna also show the party number of the customer, so we can see how to move like to different records and all that stuff. Then we are gonna have the lines. So we create a record list. A record list basically is when you have multiplicity of records you want to show. So we can call this lines, and then we can, for example, add the line number, and I don't know, we can add the item ID, for example, and we can add the amount, let's say. Then we have our model. So what we could do now is we could create another model mapping, or we can do the model mapping within the model. So the difference is that within the model, you will have only one model mapping, or you won't have like the ability to reuse it so easily. And outside of the model mapping, it gives you more flexibility. But I am going to do it within the model because it's easier. So model mapping. This is the model mapping, right? So we are exporting. So we are going from our table data to the model. If we were importing, we would go from the model to the destination. So to model for exports and to destination for imports. Now, we go to designer. This is the model that we've created, but this is empty. It's an empty structure, as I said before. what we have to do is to fulfill it. We're gonna fulfill it with the table records of the sales tables. So this, oh, okay. So this ask for query parameter will ask for a query whenever we execute it. So I can efficiently filter it. This is efficient. This and using the filter function is efficient. Using the where function is okay if you are doing in control scope, but don't overuse it. Like if you can use the filter, it's just faster. Let's call this sales table. Okay, this is the sales table records. So it adds the sales table with all the records and all the fields and methods, instance methods. So now it's a matter of binding the stuff from the data sources to our model. So we want to show our sales table records. We want to get the customer ID. So I always click on show name first and show details because it gives you more details. So you can go to now I think it's cast account, right? Yeah, cast account. Now to get to the cast party number, I put this here on purpose so you can check how we travel across the different tables. So we are in the sales table. We want to go to the party number. The relation is through customer cast table and then party number. So since a customer can have many sales orders, we go to this like less than, because it goes like it's opening. So it goes from many to one, greater than. We go to cast it to the, and this will open all the relations, the tables that are related to this sales table that will lead us to the customers, like here, or we can use, it should be another one based on the, this is the, I think that will work here. So we go to the customer account, and in the customer account, we could do the same and go to the third party table, or we can use a method. I wouldn't use a method, but I want to use a method here so I can show you how to use the method, right? So I know it should be a third party or party number or something like that method here, third party table. So we can use this method that will return the related third party table. And that will lead us to the third party number. The party number, what is it? Or it's just party number, right? Party number, yeah. Okay, now for the lines, we do the same, but in this case, the lines are many lines for each sales table, so it's the other way. Oh, I didn't bind the sales ID. So you go, you bind the sales ID. I am running out of time. So what I'm going to do is, now that you have seen how this works, you would bind the lines and every single field of the lines. But I have a very similar example already ready for you, because I suspected I could run out of time. That is this one. Designer, map model to data source, and here we are showing, we are binding all this stuff too. And let's go to the format. In the format, what you do is, for XML in this case, you would go and create the file elements, and in every element you put like the multiplicity, if it's mandatory, if it's not, and you can also put visibility conditions. So for example, this sales line only will use the item ID, only will show the item ID element if there's an item ID. But if we are using a category, we won't show the item ID. So in this, let's see if I run this, can filter and show some records. Oh, I am in DAT, okay. And around in half an hour, you can have a working, like if you know what you have to do and exactly the information you need to show and where to get it, you can have in half an hour a process that generates an XML from your data like this. So this is what I've done. It took me like 20 minutes, more or less. You can see how, for example, the item ID is not shown, so we can put visibility conditions, and you can see how we have many sales orders, the ones that we filter, one with one sales line, the other with 3 sales line, okay, no, 2 sales line, and so on. Now for the business documents, if you want to change a business document, you will need to duplicate the invoice model, mapping like this. You can do create configuration and then derive from, and that will create a copy. Like, for example, ITS invoice model, that will create a copy. And then you can also, like, you would also create a copy of the invoice model mapping in that new model, and you create a copy of the sales invoice Excel in that model, because you can then choose the model, right? And have your own copy. Only for creating it, deriving from the sales invoice Excel, it will have this business document type sales order invoice that it will make it eligible in your print management. That's the key thing of the business documents. So you go to print management, and here all the ERs that you've created, they're deriving from the standard ones, will be eligible here, like these ones. This is the standard one, but if we create a new one, it will be eligible here. And also you have the print destinations here, but you also have the print destinations, as I was saying before, in the electronic reporting itself. Like if you go to, I think you have to go to here, electronic reporting destinations, and you can create a new destination for the one that we created. It was export XML format, and you can here say, yeah, this one, select, put a name, and you can set the settings. I want to send it through email, archive it, create a file, show it in the screen, and you can convert it to PDF, and even change the PDF conversions. So obviously you won't probably convert an XML to a PDF, but if it's a Word or an Excel supported type, it will do it for you. So that's all. I kind of ran out of time a little. Yeah, I couldn't do the business document example, but that's it. Thank you for your attention, and just check my blog, check my LinkedIn, and just if you have any particular questions around this, ask me, and I will redirect you to the appropriate content, or I will give you some hand on it. Thank you.